Whenever we hear the name Fort Knox, it spurs emotions and controversy because many people don't feel that the gold exists in Fort Knox. I would venture to guess that most of you do not believe that the gold is actually there. And post in the comment section below if you think it's there or not. I actually am one of the probably few who believe it is there, but you'd be surprised as to how much of the gold reserves are actually stored in Fort Knox. We'll talk about that and so much more in this video. Gold Knox, a perspective from a former director of the U.S. Mint. Let's explore. Gold, glad it's safe. That is a reference from the former Treasury Secretary who visited the Fort Knox Gold Depository in 2017. We'll get to him in a moment. But first, we're going to talk about a U.S. Mint director who actually visited and was inside of the Fort Knox Depository, Philip M. Diehl. And this is an article I'm referencing from Coin Week. The public image of the United States Bullion Depository at Fort Knox, Kentucky was cemented in the 1964 movie Goldfinger. The four-story vaults of shining chrome bar-encased gold, suspended staircases, and the vast interior are now classic Hollywood images of what our imagination want Fort Knox to look like. But the reality is very different, as we can imagine. And we know that in part based off of a visit in 1974. But Philip M. Diehl has been inside, one of the few people allowed to visit inside over the past 40 years. The Mint stated policy is that the depository is a classified facility. No visitors are allowed, and no exceptions are made. Even former presidents have been turned away. But as I alluded to earlier, former U.S. Mint Director Mary Brooks led 130 press representatives and members of Congress into the depository to debunk rumors that the vault was empty in 1974. I remember hearing these rumors at home in Texas. Ed Bush of WFAA radio in Dallas finally fanned the flames of suspicion into great effect. That has finally forced the Treasury Department to open the vault, and he's confident that the gold is there. But the idea that anyone could look at a stack of gold bars and be reassured, in fact, that the gold is all there is amusing. Exactly, because they could be fake. And I think that's just it. That visit in 1974 really did not exude much confidence. Now, we have to emphasize that it is a secret facility, and we also need to emphasize that it's also a fort. From the outside, the depository appears to be a concrete Depression-era structure, nothing special, unlike the Fort Knox of Hollywood fame, but it is well protected. There are concentric rings of defenses starting with this two-story vault itself. The vault is actually pretty small, less than 4,000 square feet and 2 stories high. Its walls are 2 feet thick and constructed of concrete encased steel plates. Steel I-beams and steel cylinders faced with hoop bands. The vault walls and roof are separated from the depository's outer walls and roof, which are made of granite-lined concrete. The vault door is a blast drill and torch-proof, 21 inches thick, and weighs in at more than 20 tons. It is set on a 100-hour time clock and is rarely opened. There's no need. Metal is not moved in and out of the vault. The gold used in producing the Mint's gold coins is held at the West Point Mint. There's a lot of gold there. I'll talk about that later in the video. No one person can open the vault door. As with all vaults, there is an escape door for anyone who might become trapped in the vault, but you might rather wait out the 100-hour clock. The approach to the door is through a narrow tunnel, and one must crawl through. It opens outside the vault, but inside the depository. The escape door only opens from the inside. 4 armored guard boxes stand at each corner of the building, and armored sentry boxes flank the entrance gate. The facility has standalone emergency power water, and other symptoms directly on site. The next ring in production is the heavily armed and highly professional members of the United States Police Force, the United States Mint Police Force, who can engage intruders from inside the fortress and beyond the outer steel fence. Between the walls of the depository and the outer perimeter lie rings of razor wire and minefields, monitored by high-resolution night vision video cameras and microphones. The depository sits on the Fort Knox Army Post at the corner of Bullion Boulevard and Gold Vault Road. That's right, those are the actual names of the streets. So when he was Mint director, the post offered additional protection from the 194th Armored Brigade, helicopter gunships, artillery, and about 25,000 soldiers, according to his memory. He knows that Fort Knox has gone through significant downsizing over the past decade, so he's uncertain how much of this firepower is available today. But during Philip M. Diehl's visit, he asked if anyone had been crazy enough to try to penetrate these awesome defenses. He was told that on one or two occasions, an inebriated soldier looking for a shortcut back to base from a local bar and not knowing where he was had attempted to climb the outer fence. You can imagine that sobering effect of the floodlights, alarms, and booming speakers would have on this unfortunate fellow. Yes, indeed. So not many attempts, and it's from somebody from essentially the inside, or somebody who would guard a facility from the Fort Knox, from the 194th Armored Division. Pretty amazing. Now, what about Fort Knox today? It holds about 4,600 metric tons of gold, worth close to $200 billion. 2.5% of all the gold ever refined over the course of human history. That's pretty amazing. It's a lot of gold. But during World War II, the depository held more than 4 times its current holdings. That's right. It's about 20,000 tons of gold. A lot of that gold came from other nations wanted to protect their gold and hide it from the likes of Nazi Germany, which had already raided a lot of gold and other valuables in other countries of Europe that it had invaded. Gold might not have been the most valuable asset held by the depository. Over the years, Fort Knox has protected copies of the Gutenberg Bible, the Magna Carta, the Declaration of Independence, and the United States Constitution, and the Gettysburg Address, among other priceless artifacts. Now, on a grimmer note, during the Cold War, morphine and opium were stored at the depository in case there were a need of huge quantities after a nuclear exchange with the Soviet Union. Yes, the Cold War was certainly a scary time, but we live with different threats nowadays, so it makes you wonder of what could be stored there now to prepare for what could come down the pike. Different types of threats, but all pretty much could lead to an apocalyptic end in any due course in time. Nonetheless, there's the visit that Steve Mnuchin took there in 2017. I did a video about that. But to think about what about the gold in the Fort Knox depository? Obviously, security being a major concern when you're housing nearly half of the country's official gold reserves. That's right, that only holds half. The rest is held at West Point Mint. As you can see here, these two pieces here are gold that was held in the depository. If you have a gold eagle or a gold buffalo or any of the multiple collector coins that the United States Mint produces, you have gold that was once stored at the depository at West Point. That is the gold that is being used to mint coins and metals and other things, and even some bars obviously are stored there. But that's right, about half is stored at the West Point facility, another treasury facility, and obviously the West Point is a place where the military has high standing, and the West Point Academy. So there's a base there too, heavily guarded. Now, the 147.3 million troy ounces are estimated to be at the depository at Fort Knox. And again, $200 and some million billion dollars worth. The gold vault itself lies beneath an imposing structure, a granite room accessible through a 21-inch thick, 20-ton blast door, as we mentioned before. And according to reports of the Minution visit, a plastic seal of some sort has had to be cut open in order to allow them inside. Construction on the entire structure began in 1936, and the federal government delivered the first gold bars for storage the next year in 1937. While the land upon which the building and vault are located is within the jurisdiction of the Fort Knox Army Base, the Department of Treasury has maintained and operated the facility since 1937. It is a U.S. Mint facility, and that's why the U.S. Mint Director, Mary Brooks, led this delegation to tour it in 1974, September the 23rd to be exact. And U.S. Mint directors, as we've seen and talked about too, Philip and Diehl, but also Edmund C. Moy has also visited the facility too. If he does give an account on it, we'll report on it here. But it's pretty amazing. A massive facility, amazing, but really smaller than I thought it would be at 4,000 square feet for the vault itself. But, gold is very dense and valuable, so it makes sense. Now, this information that I've given you here will give you no more confidence that there is actually gold there, because are you going to take the words of a former Treasury Secretary or a former U.S. Mint Director? No. What we need is a transparent audit of the Federal Reserve facilities, including assay testing and multiple different sources, media outlets from a variety of different persuasions in order for us to have the full and utmost confidence that the gold is there. Can they do that while guarding security? I think there is a way that it can be done, a full and transparent audit, because I think it needs to be done, but they won't do it. Why won't they do it? Because they don't want to draw any more attention to gold than they have to. Because gold, as you know, is certainly a safe store of value, and my guess is they want most Americans in the dark. That's my feeling on it. Let me know what your thoughts are. Hope you found this video informative, insightful, and entertaining. I would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.